Parents needed for ranking. Junior crew person. Points needed for ranking. What is this? I have no idea what that is. Junior crew person, 0 of 25,000. What does that mean? Is this a new thing TikTok added? I have no idea. Whatever. We're going to have a good show today. We're going to talk about the Amish. Got my Papa Bear cup. Yeah, we're gonna have a talk about the Amish and how they educate their children versus how children are educated in American, the general American public and public schools, and what a difference it is. And I'm very excited. I thought I was going to do this show tomorrow, but I had to change the plans last minute. So tomorrow I have a very exciting show. Kirsten Morley, who homeschool mother, really phenomenal. She does a lot of good work with counseling people with anxiety, stuff like that. Lose a lot of heat in the neck. Well, I have a cold, and my wife is a practitioner of Chinese medicine, acupuncture. And in Chinese medicine, they teach that sickness is triggered through the back of the neck. So if you're feeling sick, you're going to be outside, cover your neck. So as ridiculous as I may look, that's fine. I got to do what you got to do. So yeah, I was going to be on with Kirsten Morley today at 12 noon, but something came up. We're going to push that back till tomorrow. She is an incredible homeschool mother. I'm so excited to have her on. She's anyone who follows her page, she's really a fantastic person, and I'm excited to talk to her about her journey and her experience with public school, because when I originally came across Kirsten, it seemed like public school had turned into a public nightmare, schooling nightmare. So I'm very interested to talk to her about her journey. But today, we're going to talk about a different form of schooling, something that I've been very interested in for a few years. Now, by the way, I'm very interactive. If any of you have any questions as it relates to what I'm talking about, interested in for a few years. Now, by the way, I'm very interactive. If any of you have any questions as it relates to what I'm talking about, to lost connection. I'm desperate to learn unschooling. Well, we'll cover some unschooling in this talk. In fact, I don't think an episode goes by, if that's what we're going to call these, an episode in which I don't cover unschooling, because to me, unschooling is the most powerful form of homeschool. Kiram, hi, how you doing? To me, unschooling is the most powerful form of homeschool because it allows you to teach your child through following their interest and applying it to the real world. So this morning I posted a video about the Amish, and I've been fascinated with the Amish for years. I mean, we see how together their community is, how strong their community is, and the most impressive part of all to me about the Amish is how incredibly resistant they are to tyranny. I mean, think of how impacted every person in the world has been since what happened about 20 months ago, whatever it is now. And the Amish are nearly unfazed. By the way, if you ever want to look into, I mean, I'm not saying anything, but if you ever want to look into what the Amish do with medicine, their medical decisions and their rates of certain diseases being much lower, okay, I'm not going to talk about these things because, all right, so let's see what the people are saying. Love unschooling. Rejoice or repent. Yes. Unschooling, not teaching the basic subjects like math. Well, if there's someone that 100% unschools, then yes, they might actually neglect mathematics, depending on the profile of their child. I only advocate for partial unschooling because I actually do think that, no matter what, my children are learning math. But hey, listen, to each their own, and it works for some people. But unless your child's interested in math, and then, hey, So, the Amish. So a few years ago, I visited the Amish in Pennsylvania. And right when you get there, you're blown away by the size of their community, how large the community is, how well run everything is, and how big their farms are. And my wife and I and my son, and my daughter wasn't with us yet, we showed up on this Amish farm, and really a gigantic business operation. And you go in and you go on the tour and you see how well run everything is, from their food operations, which I'm going to get into more because it relates to educating children, to their gift shop, to the way the farm is set up, how the animals are taken care of. And they have all these huge plots of land for the animals. And then you say, wait a second, I thought the Amish don't use technology, right? They don't use, not technology, electronics. And then you go through the tour and you see these very elaborate, what's behind you. I'm hopefully not a snake that wants to kill me. I am in the South. You got to be careful saying that stuff. So you continue to walk through their farm and say, they don't use electronics. How do they run this operation? And then you see the Amish engineering and what they do, building up their own water systems. And it is really, it's not to be believed. It's technology that was around 200 years ago that people don't use now, but it's, I mean, the complexity that goes into building these systems, and you see how capable they are of living that way. And to me, as the education guy, right, Classical Learner Education Company, and I had a father of a young child at the time, right? Now I have 2 young children. I wanted to know how they were educating their youth. What are the Amish doing? So, sure enough, I was lucky enough to be able to visit the Amish one-room schoolhouse. Say the one-room schoolhouse. Well, in America, before the Rockefellers took over the education system around 1910, right? In America, the one-room schoolhouse, that was just standard, right? Most children in America were raised in this one-room schoolhouse, and America was very prosperous. People were, independence, freedom, sovereignty was part of the American culture. Now I know people are going to hit me with the narratives, not for people of all races. Yeah, you get the point though. For people that were free, independence and sovereignty and being frontiersmen, right? That was part of the American culture. And so the Amish are still utilizing this one-room schoolhouse to this day. And when you do a little research into how they educate their children, they focus on a few things. They focus on 3 primary: reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? And how many times have I said that most of what happens in public school is nonsense, right? You have to, little Matthew has to memorize the year that Paul Revere warned the colonists that the British were coming, right? Right? The Amish are focusing on those 3 things, critical thinking type things: reading, writing, and math, which is your basic logic. And when we teach children writing, right, what do I always tell people? If you're teaching your children writing, what is the number 1 objective of early childhood reading and writing? I've always wanted to visit an Amish community. Yeah, everyone should. It really is quite an experience to see how well run their operation is. And how their community operates in synchronicity with one another. This is like, before I get to the school stuff, for those of you that aren't familiar with the Amish, I mean, they are incredible. And if you ever want to see something amazing, go to YouTube and type in Amish build a house in one day. It is the most remarkable thing you have ever seen. They do a time lapse, and at the start of the day, there's no house, so there's no barn. And this time lapse, they work on it like literally the entire community, like 300 people working on this structure together. Time lapse, and by sunset, there's a building. There's a fully built building. Lucy, leave that. I see you thinking about it. I love the community they have together. I would love to be a part of that community. Yeah, and the Amish are known for their construction. They're known for their engineering. So, like, if you ever want to have really well-built stuff, like someone asked me, what's this behind me? This is a gazebo. Actually not built by the Amish, but the Amish, one of their enterprises, and the Amish are very good at business, one of their enterprises is they build gazebos, they build barns, and they build houses. And they could ship you the gazebos, and depending on location, they could actually show up, build a barn, build a house for you. And it's hard to find better engineering, better architecture than that of the Amish. How far did they go with math? So the Amish are very impressive, and if you spend 3 minutes at one of their towns, at one of their farms, it jumps out how impressive they are and how proficient they are in engineering, architecture, construction, farming, business. I mean, they are phenomenal at business. So I visited the one-room schoolhouse because I wanted to. And by the way, if you guys can hit the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm and whatnot. So I visited the Amish one-room schoolhouse because I wanted to see how they were educated. And by 8th grade, right, someone asked me how far do they go in math. By 8th grade, they've already covered algebra, calculus. Now, you have to understand, they come from a very disciplined culture, right? So when the young Amish child gets his algebra assignment, he's taking it very seriously, right? They're not distracted by screens. They're not doing that type of thing. If you're Amish, you're disciplined. Different, but similar in a way to what you would expect from Asian cultures, right? On aggregate, right, on average, you see how well Asian children do just in American public schools, right? They do much better than children on average of different demographics. And the reason for that is culturally, that discipline is expected of them, right? There's the old joke with the Asian mother, and the son comes home and he's all proud, right? And he's like, "Mom, I'm a doctor." And she's like, "Yeah, well, sorry about this, having some, there you go." She's like, "Yeah, well, Xing Wei down the block, he's doctor and lawyer. You're only doctor," right? And that's a culture. Well, the Amish, they get their assignments and they're going to take them very seriously, which is fine, different culturally. So by 8th grade, they've already taken algebra, calculus, all these advanced mathematics, because in Amish culture, they're being prepared to be adults by the time they're quote-unquote in 9th grade. Because the Amish actually, and the reason I brought up 8th grade, is they only do schooling, their one-room schoolhouse, which was the norm in America from up until the 20th century when the Rockefellers took over the education system. For those of you not familiar with the Rockefeller takeover of the education system, there was a committee, the Reese Committee, right? There was the Reese Committee, which were a congressional committee put together in the 1950s. And Norman Dodd, very brave congressman, was able to get access to the documents, right, the corporate minutes of the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, these big tax-exempt foundations. And what they found was that in the early 1900s, right, these big tax-exempt foundations had gotten together and they had colluded, dare I say, to take over the American education system. Now, you have to put it in context. At the time, the Rockefellers, right, they were dealing with the trust busters, right? People were outraged that these corporations had, it was alleged that these corporations had become too powerful, right? Andrew Carnegie was handling things in a different way, right? He was donating money to the Carnegie Library and donating all this money. And this is where the concept of a philanthropist came along, because these entrepreneurial titans, right, that had formed monopolies had developed a bad name, and people were calling for their trust to be broken up, and to the point where they actually started to purchase the newspapers, and that's when they went from being bad guys to being philanthropists, right? Something we see with Bill Gates today, right? Oh, he's a philanthropist. He's a philanthropist. Well, if you just go back through his interviews, he nearly 10 times his money by getting into pharmaceuticals, and you know how much money he had to start, right? And now they're trying to mandate we get all these procedures, right? But he's a philanthropist, right? Well, that's where all this stuff comes from. So, Norman Dodd, he gets access to these corporate papers, and these big titans, they got together and they're like, we need to take over the American education system because we need a population that's more docile, right? That kind of mind control, right? We need a population that will accept what we tell them is true. Because if you do that, you never have a problem staying in power. And what they did was they looked back through history and they found an education system that had been designed to create a docile, obedient population. That education system was the Prussian education system, which was created in the 1870s. Why was it created? Because Prussian soldiers fighting against France and Napoleon literally turned around, disobeyed orders, and ran away, right? And when they ran away and they lost the war, Prussia, the government got together after and said, we can't have this happen again. So they brought in the social engineers of that day. They brought in the psychologist of that day, and they formulated, by the way, if you guys could smash the like button, it really helps me reach new people. I really appreciate it. They brought in the social engineers of that day, and they formulated an education system designed to make people look to authority for truth. And what education system was that? Well, you can guess what it looks like. 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. in 45-minute blocks. Truth comes from the textbook and the teacher, and children are given a grade of A if they regurgitate what is in the textbook or what the teacher says, right? And that's where their self-esteem comes from. And after enough time, authority becomes truth. And that's why we see so many people in the modern world unable to question Mr. Ouchie, right? Who wants to forcibly make us get procedures against our will, right? Oh, by the way, guys, I've made a lot of videos. I'm falling. I've made a lot of videos on TikTok that have gotten like really well, like 50,000, 100,000 views and whatnot. My troll of Fauci that I did on Friday, I was certain would get more traction. I was so excited to troll this guy because I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I am a big-time dog lover. So when the revelations came out about what he does to dogs, I was like, Lucy, come here, girl. I want to show you to the people. So when the revelations came out about what he had participated in, that he was okay with dogs, I was like, I got to troll this guy. Lost connection. They must be grappling me. Unstable connection. There it is. All right, so I was like, hi, I'm Brett Pike. Every day, dogs are abused in America. Don't support the people that do it. What would they be willing to do to you? So anyway, I don't know. I just wanted to get out Fauci, and I don't know. I thought that would be more popular, but anyway. It's always like, I put out videos that take me like 3 seconds to make, and they get a ton of traction. I'm like, why'd that get a lot of traction? And then like I put like my heart and soul into a video. It took me like 4 hours to put together, and no one cares. But anyway, that's how it goes. He also experimented on orphan children. I didn't hear about that, but allegedly that's what the people are saying. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I consider everything that's going on in society right now an experiment. So in a way, he's experimented on every one of us. So anyway, the Prussian education system, right? So anyway, the Prussian education system, right? And that's the education system that was designed in Prussia to produce an obedient population that looks to authority for truth. And that's the education system that, oh, come on with this unstable connection. That's the education system that the Rockefellers and the Carnegies adopted, and that's the education system leveraging their funding, right? Philanthropic grants. They were able to spread that education system throughout the world, right? It's not just in the American education system. That's why if you ever want to know, do we have a global system? Well, yes, there are different governments and there are different jurisdictions, right? But money doesn't know country lines, right? And these globalists, as people like to call them, these Babylonian globalists, leverage their money across national, international borders, right? And they gain control of these systems. And one of the systems, the institutions that this global government has taken control of throughout not just the United States of America, but the world, is the education system. And that's why my life's purpose, my life's work, has been dedicated to convincing people, one, to homeschool their children, and two, to show them how to do it. Because if you want to take control back from your government, if you want to take control back from these corporations and these big tax-exempt foundations, if you want to take control back, give the power back to yourself, give the power back to your children, give the power back to the people, then the best, most efficient way you can do that is by taking control over the education of the next generation, right? I forgot who said it, but a tyrant once said that, give me children for the first 7 years of their life, and I'll control them for their entire life, right? Well, we can apply that to our children. We can apply that to our community. We can apply that to our nation. We can apply that to our world, and we can take back our world through personal responsibility, through building community, through supporting one another. Starts with education, 100%. So the Amish, they understand this, right? By the way, smash that like button, really helps me out, helps me reach new people. So the Amish, they understood this, right? And they have the one-room schoolhouse. In fact, at one point, the Amish were brought to court by the government, and the government was telling them that they had to adopt the Department of Education standards. So the Amish lawyered up, they fought their fight, and ultimately they came to an agreement with the government that they would teach some of the Department of Education standards, but that Amish children would be educated in the Amish community in their one-room schoolhouses, and they were able to hold their ground, right? So the Amish educate in the one-room schoolhouse, and they do so the minimum government education required, and their children attend school between 1st and 8th grade, and that's why I brought up the 8th grade. By 8th grade, they know algebra, calculus, all these advanced mathematics. They are have adult-like penmanship. They are very proficient writers. They are very proficient readers, right? The number one objective of early childhood reading and writing is to develop a love of reading and writing. That's what I tell parents all the time. The Amish focus on reading and writing because they know that a person proficient in reading, proficient in writing, will become a lifelong learner, right? So if our children love to learn, they love to read, right? That's why, like, if there's an assignment that's tedious, they don't want to do that reading, that's fine. We could do that reading via audiobook. We could do that reading via another format, right? But we are going to make sure that our children read every day. It could just be the type of reading that they love. I ordered 2 new books this week because my son asked me for books. I said, you want books? We'll get books. And we read every day of his entire life. I've missed some days, but in general, every day of his entire life for 45 minutes to an hour before bed. And my son is turning 4 in February, so little over 3.5 years of age. And last night, and this was a big breakthrough, and I was beyond excited. Last night, nearly 3.5 years of age, I'm sitting down, and my son actually read for the first time. I was sitting there because what I do is I read every day, a lot of repetitive books because they memorize them so quick. And then as I read the books, I keep my finger under the words so he starts to pick up. And as he's gotten a little older, now I do complex books, and then I drop down to really baby books, simple words. And so we're sitting there last night, and it said 3, 2, 1, and he just looks at me and says, Dad, it says 3, 2, 1. And I was just blown away. I was, blown away. Stop chasing squirrels. God, just get nervous. You chase a snake. I own a one-room schoolhouse from the 1800s. Not an Amish one. That's just how it was back. That's amazing. You should start a little school in it because there's a big demand for that right now. So early childhood reading and writing. Number one objective is we want them to love reading and writing. Sorry, I just got a text message from a governor. Sometimes my life is interesting. Wow, I just got a text message from a governor. It popped up in my stream. Not like the political one, like a personal one. So the Amish send their children to school between 1st and 8th grade. And that has a lot, there's so much that goes into that is powerful. But one of my, taught my kid how to read by 4. That's amazing. That's amazing. One of my biggest problems with the way children are educated in the modern world, my biggest grievances, and I can't believe that people allow it to happen, that our culture, that our morality has allowed this to happen, is how many children are separated from their parents in pre-K. Like, they're 2 years old, they're sent to daycares because you got to make money, you got to work. These first 7 years are the most important 7 years of your child's entire life. And the notion that people are so comfortable sending them to daycares or sending them to schools overseen by the Department of Education and these heartless, soulless bureaucracies which have no qualms about indoctrinating your children, whose belief systems are antithetical to your own, who not only are amoral but are often immoral, very corrupt people who run these institutions. I mean, the teachers are fine, but the teachers are answering to these to the Department of Education, these bureaucracies. They're answering to the school board. They're being educated by these ultra fascist. I don't like to use the word liberal because I think that's just a cage that people are in cage. Their mind is in sort of a prison, right? But the institutions themselves, being controlled from the top, are fascistic, right? America is a form of fascism. Not the way the media uses the term, right? The media uses the term, anyone who is right-wing is fascist. No, the definition of fascism, dictatorial powers, and a partnership between the government and corporations and big institutions, right? America is fascistic in the way it's run, the way the education system. So there, you have these teachers educated through this system, pushing this ultra leftist ideology or this big government ideology, right? And I'm getting into an area that, I mean, if you, even communism and fascism, right? People like left and right wing, but a more accurate depiction of communism and fascism is communism, fascism, and they're right next to each other, right? So you could go up the circle and get further away from them. But anyway, the way this stuff is all taught to the public by the media, it's all backwards. So I digress. Right on, sir. Their parents are not aware of the agenda. Yeah, their parents aren't, or if they are, I mean, I hope not. But so children are taken out of the home at a young age, but the Amish, they make sure that doesn't happen. And children don't start their schooling until 1st grade. And even when they start that schooling, the Amish make sure that they're being taught community values, right? They're in the one-room schoolhouse with their peers and children of different ages, and we're going to get into that. And the teachers, and I found this to be so interesting. The teachers in Amish one-room schoolhouses are all girls, ages 18 to 22. They teach before they get married, then they married, and in Amish culture you have children right away. And when you're a mother in Amish culture, the children are raised by the mother. So they stop teaching at 22 years old. They start having children of their own, and the next crop of 18 to 22-year-old girls, become the teachers, which I just think is so fascinating in terms of culture. And people will hate on that, but I really like that. I think that's great that they do that. And, anyone who's going to hate on them, maybe you should be more tolerant of other people's cultures. So they really do a great job of preaching and teaching their community values, right? I love what the Amish do. Like, they give their children the option to go out into the world and explore the world, and then they come back to the community, and the children have a choice where you could come back and live in the community and be Amish, or you can go off and embrace American culture. So, and again, people say it's harsh, but it's a different culture, and it's something that I have great respect for. So they do a great job of teaching their culture, but regardless of what we can learn from it, is that it is very important that young children be with their parents, specifically their mothers, because as much as modern feminism would like to try to convince people otherwise, no father, I cannot replicate what my wife does. I'm the most hands-on father on planet Earth. I run a homeschooling company. I teach homeschooling. I'm the homeschool dad, right? I'm the most committed dad you'll ever see. And I can't for 1 second replicate the value that my wife provides to my children. She's just, God has made my wife in a certain way where she does things that I can't replicate. And I think our modern culture tries to put women down and actually suppress them by telling them that when someone points that out, they're oppressing women. No, what I'm saying is that my wife is elevated from me in this scenario, that I can't replicate what she does. And it's so valuable to my children, and I'm so grateful, right? I'm so grateful to my wife. I'm so grateful to God that we've been fortunate enough for my children to be, they're raised by me, but they are raised by my wife, right? And my role as a father, as a husband, is to make sure that she has everything she needs so that the environment's less stressful. And like one of the things I had to learn being a father is I'm very fun and loving, and I actually had to teach myself to be more disciplined, right? Because I had to be that discipline in the home to make sure that the children don't give my wife a hard time. And then when I do that, both of them really thrive, right? Because they're listening to their mother, they're following her lead. And this stuff is it's really all biblical, but I had to learn it through experience. But my job as a husband is to make sure that she's comfortable, that she's not stressed out. And then by doing that, I've really seen my children thrive. So the Amish one-room schoolhouse, 1st to 8th grade, which is really just phenomenal. So then between 1st and 8th grade, the children, yes, they're learning the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, which is phenomenal. They're being taught by members of the community, girls that are 18 to 22 years of age, that are playing such a valuable role in that community. It's part of the reason why they can't be conquered by outside forces, why their families are so intact. Amish women, to think about the life of sacrifice, the life of service that they put forward, right? 18 to 22 years old, they're not out getting crunked. They're educating the next generation. They're having children. They're raising their children. There's a reason that community is so strong, because those women are the heart. Those women are the soul of that community. And I can't compliment it enough. All my neighbors are Amish. I have a lot of Amish friends, even shop at their stores. And their stores are so impressive. So the Amish education, that reminds me, I want to bring it back to when I go full circle. Okay. 1st to 8th grade, they're taught by the 18 to 22-year-old teachers, and they're actually taught by their peers. So in the Amish one-room schoolhouse, it is the responsibility, the expectation of a mature young Amish child, as they start to grow, that they are responsible for actually educating the younger children. So yes, you have the teacher, 18 to 22 years old, teaching the Amish children, but you also have the 7th, 8th grade Amish children taking a big responsibility in the classroom, working as a tutor with the younger children, teaching them algebra, teaching them calculus, teaching them reading and writing and grammar, along with other subjects that they learn more minimally. And it's a powerful lesson that we should all learn as homeschoolers because, and I've learned this because so much of my life has been teaching, right? Right now I'm teaching. I view myself as a teacher. I educate parents on how to educate their children, right? That's what I do. When you teach someone else, it reinforces what you already know to the point where you start to know it better, right? Because you have to simplify your message. BizLW, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate anyone who supports me, sending me the roses, which is phenomenal. By the way, I do have my private homeschool community as well for anyone that might be interested in joining. My private homeschool community, Homeschools Connected. That's the promo code together. It's $10 a month, and it's a really positive thing. So, so the older children teach the younger children algebra, calculus, which reinforces the lessons to the older children. Something that we should be implementing in our homeschools. Make sure that your older children do have a responsibility. I have a 14-year-old teen. I have a 14-year-old. Actually, that's a good segue too. We're going to talk about the Amish and teens, because that's very interesting in its own right. So make sure your older children are working as a tutor in a way with your younger children. I'm going to get back to the teen point. I'm going to get back to that at the end because we covered the early childhood years. I want to cover the teen years and as it relates to really setting your children up for success. So as children are in their schooling, they're also being conditioned or taught the importance of responsibility, being responsible members of their school, being responsible peers, being responsible members of the community. Accidental homeschooler to a 10-year-old with, is that a speech processing disorder? Check out the Gemini homeschooling, Gemini, for speech processing disorder homeschooling. That's great. I did a TikTok Friday, I think it was, or maybe maybe it was yesterday, that when the devil throws you out of hell, just smile and keep on walking. And the last 20 months, so many people have been thrown out of public schooling, and you will look back 10 years from now, you will look back 20 years from now when you see your children, and you will say, wow, what a gift. The devil threw me right out of hell. So, Amish children are expected to do chores. It's part of their daily schooling. So they don't hire a janitor in Amish schools. The Amish children are expected to clean the chalkboard. They're expected to throw away the garbage, sweep the floors, take the garbage out, right? This is all part of their schooling because they're being taught personal responsibility and responsibility to their community, which is very much in that Charlotte Mason style, because anyone who has used Charlotte Mason knows that chores, daily chores, are a part of the Charlotte Mason ideology. So your children should be waking up and, schedule your day however you want, but they wake up, let the dogs outside, feed the dogs, whatever it might be that they have to do, that take out the garbage, I don't know, whatever you have them do. But they should have daily chores because you're teaching them the importance of personal responsibility, and you're teaching them that in life there are some things that you have to do. Which I know some people that 100% unschool, they get mad at me. They say, no, you don't have to do anything in life. That's fine. Raise them the way you want. I don't think there's any one right way to raise a child. I'm just talking about Charlotte Mason, and I actually agree with Charlotte Mason in that respect. So they're being educated, 18 to 22-year-old teachers. By 8th grade, they're masters in algebra and calculus and advanced mathematics. They're working as tutors, teaching the younger children in their one-room schoolhouse. They're doing their chores, and then they hit 8th grade. what do the Amish do at that point? Well, that's when their formal schooling, the one-room schoolhouse, comes to an end. And they start a purposeful preparation to being full-grown, fully independent, free adults who are members of the community, who aren't reliant on anyone else, but are happy to participate with everyone else. So how do they do that? They start getting their education in agriculture, in engineering, in working with their hands, in trades. Many of them start apprenticeships, right? So after 8th grade, the Amish shift their focus to skill development so that their children know how to plant seeds, grow food, harvest crops. They know how to build water systems with their hands. They know how to engineer. They know how to build gazebos. They know how to build barns and build sheds and take care of animals, and all of these skills that allow them to be very impressive and free people by the time they're 18 years of age. They do apprenticeships, which to me, an apprenticeship is so powerful, and it's something that's been stripped away from our society. But an 18-year-old or a 16-year-old who starts an apprenticeship as a locksmith can have a 6-figure business, be completely independent and free by the time they're 18 years old. Think about that. She has been in Montessori since 9 months, but seems bored with it. Oh, she's bored. Switch it up. Adopt some of the Montessori methodology, right? Like set up the play space so that it's conducive for learning, but maybe introduce some Charlotte Mason, maybe introduce some unschooling. Figure out how your child likes to learn, and it will work out. We live near Amish and Native. How did your speech go? Thank you. It went great. I've actually been meaning to post it to my YouTube page. I've been so busy that I just got a text message from a congressman. I've been so busy that I haven't had the chance to post it, but I will post it, and it went very well. I got a standing ovation, and I won the people. So it was good. I told my wife they didn't boo, so I was happy. But I was very impressed, I might add, with the Constitution Party. I didn't know anything about them going in, and they were it was their national committee meeting. So I was there with all their big shots, the head of the party in each state, and I was very impressed with their discussions on liberty and getting back to the Constitution, and they were very against the medical authoritarianism that's been going on. I couldn't have been more impressed by what I saw. Thank you for spreading your message and information. Thank you for being here, and you being here helps me spread that information. So after 8th grade, the Amish focus on a purposeful, very intense focus on skill development. Agriculture, architecture, engineering, any type of trade. They do apprenticeships, and they understand that in order to be free, right? The Amish aren't affected by the medical tyranny. They're not affected by all of the things that the government does because they understand what it takes to be free. So how do they do that? They're not in debt. They value family. They raise their own children. They educate their own children. They have lots of children because they understand that children is strength. They teach their children skills. Those skills are used to, they have engineers and architects and carpenters and people that can build with their hands, because they understand that people that can build with their hands and do these type of things will always have work, and they'll never be reliant on anybody else. And then on top of that, they build community. They have in-group preference. As I said, go YouTube. The Amish put up a barn in one day. It's the most impressive thing you've ever seen. Sun comes up, there's nothing there. Sun goes down, there's a 3,000 square foot building. remarkable. All with hammers and chisels. Got the dogs in the house behind me. And to me, I mean, that's the best way to educate children. So, early childhood education. This is the last thing I wanted to bring up. So, what I was blown away by is they don't just focus on skill development. They focus on entrepreneurialism from a very young age. And when we visited the Amish, they must have been 7 or 8 years old, were running an entire food stand. They were making hamburgers, hot dogs, selling drinks and whatever it might be. 7 or 8 year olds seemingly running a large portion of an Amish business. And I'm talking, there were thousands and thousands of tourists coming through here. So this wasn't a small operation. And I was so impressed with it. And then when you understand what they do, and you see that they do a hyper focus on critical thinking, the process of learning, reading and writing. Mrs. Pac-Man, good morning. Thank you for being here. We're talking about the Amish today. And they do a hyper focus on skill development and entrepreneurial experience from the time children are little. So you have a people that are capable of building with their hands. They could build gazebos, build barns. They are engineers. They are locksmiths. They have trades. And they have entrepreneurial experience from the time they are little. You see why they're so independent, why they're so free, and why they're so resistant to tyranny. And to me, when we educate our children, hello, let it be. Let it be, girl. Let it be. I know you want to play. And to me, when we educate children, like, I want my children to be free, sovereign, not reliant on the government, not reliant on other people. I want them to be part of a community, but not reliant on other people. To me, you do that through skill development and entrepreneurial experience. So the best way to do that, and that's why I love unschooling, is you follow the interest of your child and you use that to teach them construction, carpentry, engineering, computer coding, art, music, cooking, photography, any skill, hair cutting, take a skill, you name it. You use that interest to teach it to your children, and then you point them in the direction so that they're always doing entrepreneurial things from the time they're 5 years old. Every semester, just have them do one basic entrepreneurial type thing, and by the time they're 18 years old, like the Amish, they will be fully functional, independent and free members of society. I had an 8-year-old, I don't know what that is, in upstate New York. It's interesting that a lot of the population is in debt and unskilled. Yeah, it's the opposite of what they should be. But we live in so many natives and Amish. Yeah. The Amish show you that if you want to be free, don't be in debt, right? Because a man who's not in debt is much harder to coerce into surrendering his medical liberty, the sovereignty over his own body, because he has to pay a mortgage, right? A man who grows his own food, like the Amish, is much more unwilling to give up his sovereignty, his freedom, to cover his breathing holes, because he has to go into a grocery store, right? Because he grows his own food. You get out of debt, you grow your own food, you reject this disgusting American culture, this hookup culture, this going out and getting drunk all the time. You reject that. You put family first, like it used to be in America. Marry younger. Have a community expectation of people honoring their marriage. And if someone cheats on their spouse, I mean, if I find out a friend of mine is cheating on his spouse, I don't even want to be his friend anymore. That's disgusting behavior, right? Moral culture. I don't want to be a part of that. Marry, put family first. Have lots of children. Understand that children are wealth. Family is wealth. You won't be in a nursing home if you have lots of children and you raise them right. Homeschool your children. Educate them with skills. Carpenters, electricians, plumbers, hair cutters, photographers, musicians, artists, computer coders. Skills, skills, skills from early childhood. And we're not waiting until, when Johnny's 16, we'll put him in a trade school. No, I know a 5-year-old who is capable of building benches, right? Skills. Raise them with skills. Get them lots of entrepreneurial experience from the time they're little. And then they'll be able to start businesses and then have in-group preference. Hire your friends. Only buy from your friends. This Christmas, buy mom and pop. Buy Cubs to Bears, right? I do consider myself your friend. Buy Cubs to Bears, but buy mom and pop. Don't go to Walmart. Because that creates a battery, right? When you spend money in your community, right? Like, you can go to Walmart and buy supplies, garden supplies, right? Or you can go to the local garden center. But when you go to the local garden center, that money not go to the local garden center. But when you go to the local garden center, that money not only when you buy, I lost connection for a second. When you buy from local businesses, that money goes to their employees. That money goes to the business. That money goes to the farmers that they're buying those local garden supplies from. When they go to a restaurant, that money goes to the local restaurant. It goes to the employees at the local restaurant, right? You're creating a battery, and that money actually gets back to you. So although you might be paying more, you're actually increasing your net worth in a way, right? Because you're creating a battery. That's what the Jewish community understands. That's what the Orthodox Jewish community, that's what the Amish community understands. That's what the Mennonites understand, right? These communities, they create a battery, right? So you need to have in-group preference. You could go to Walmart, get something for cheaper, but now all the mom and pops are going to close near you, right? Right? And that money is taken out of the battery, and that's going to corporate headquarters in Walmart. So have in-group preference. Buy mom and pop. Build community. Arm to the... within the law, of course. Agree 100%. Great message. Tomorrow, I am having on Kirsten Morley. She is an absolute rock star. I am more than excited to have her on the live stream. I originally came across Kirsten when she was having a hard time with her child in public school, and she had just decided she wanted to take her child out of public school and homeschool, and she was very upset. And she posted a video on TikTok, and anyone teach me how to homeschool? Does anyone want to teach me how to homeschool? And I did a follow-up video, I'll teach you how to homeschool, which got 600,000 plus views on it. So that was kind of fate had intertwined Kirsten and myself, and I've followed her since then, and she's a very impressive young woman. She is really a model young woman and a good role model, and I'm more than happy to have her on tomorrow at 12, so definitely check into that. And if you have questions, she's a great resource, and I post the replays of this every day to the Classical Learner YouTube page on a slight delay. I have a private homeschool community, Homeschools Connected. If you want to join that, it's $10 a month with the promo code TOGETHER. Some people join it because they just want to support what I do. They don't even have children. They just support what I do, which I really appreciate. And all that money gets reinvested back into homeschooling, back into my creation, and back into the Cubs to Bears series. So I'm going to try to publish a book tonight, which means it will probably come out in about 2 weeks. So I have another book coming out. So, all right, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, I'll call it a day. Got my Papa Bear cup, which I appreciate because I am, speaking of in-group preference, I do consider myself a member of the Bear community, so check them out because they're awesome. Yeah, the YouTube channel name is Classical Learner, and I post the replays to that page. A lot of great information, like did an episode on unschooling, Montessori, record keeping, you know, just all different types of stuff that I've done live streams on. But all right, guys, this has been fun. I need to continue my day, and I will be back. Freedom isn't free. We have to earn it every day, and I'll be back at 12 noon to earn it with Kirsten Morley, who I'm really excited to have on.